Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. We've seen it all before, numerous times. Some liberal, oftentimes an actor or someone in media who's trying to raise their own profile, or perhaps some minor political figure or consultant or advisor or whatever, says that they're walking away from the left. And then they heap all this extreme hate on the left, and their reason for saying it? Well, the left are just a bunch of lunatics. Oh, they've gone off the deep end. They've fallen off a cliff. They've gone crazy, I tell you. They say all these things as if they only just now in the last few days come to realize something, some miraculous realization that had eluded them for decades. Until now. And what is the gripe that apparently they couldn't put up with? It's never some wide range of issues, it's never a wide range of things, and it's not because something that they had previously said was their most important issue was somehow trampled upon. It's usually basically something that just came right out of the blue. The issue, the straw that breaks the snowflake's back, is always something having to do with black people. There's a cottage industry in the ex-white liberal camp who can't wait to go on Fox News or some right-wing nut racist toilet and claim that the reason they can't get hired, or the reason they got canned, or the reason they lost their university job, or just the reason that they want to gripe in general is because of quote-unquote wokeism. And the only details that they give for their whining is usually that it has to do with black people in some shape, form, or fashion. Black people demanding police be punished for breaking the law, or that if people are running around being arrogantly, blatantly, openly racist, that at the very least somebody tell them you shouldn't do that. You charge a social penalty for anti-black racism. Or if somebody's making some sort of racial justice demand, oh, they're going too far, they're just going too far. Seems they never decide to go full right-wing nut because of transgender bathrooms or immigration policy or abortion or gay marriage or women on the front lines of the military. Those are never the things that set them off. But the thing that always seems to make so-called white liberals say that they're through with so-called left-wing politics is when it seems that black people are being focused on. If black people's issues or interests seem to be gaining any sort of traction, why, that's the last straw for them. Whenever they use these phrases of the last 40 years, political correctness, cancel culture, wokeism, whatever you want to call it, they're all just code words for, you're saying it's not okay to attack black people and I can't take it. See, this is why I say that no matter what a lot of these leftists claim, when black people begin making headway in our demands, they'll be some of the main ones who will be saying, oh my God, political correctness has gone too far. It's dividing the country. We need to get over it, get past it. Oh, we got to stop this, etc. When the racial status quo is being even remotely threatened with change, a lot of people who talk a good game will prove where they really stand. Take the phrase white fragility, for instance. That's one that seems to trigger a lot of them. Another one is when black people state the simple historical fact that black people built the country. Yes, a lot of immigrants came here after the cities had been founded and built. It wasn't Irish immigrants fleeing the potato famine who were the ones who built Philadelphia. And it was not the German or the Anglos who came to the Manhattan area who built Wall Street. Black folks already built it and existed long before those people even got there. And there have been black people building the railroads decades before the first Chinese laborers did. It's not any sort of racial chauvinism that prompts the phrase of black people built the country. It's simple historical fact. The rights and policies that so many of these other groups have used in order to improve their own position in the world when they get here are all of the laws that black people fought for. They were laws that were supposed to be benefiting black people. Everyone's benefited from those laws except for black people. Even corporations have benefited from them. Another thing that I notice that triggers a lot of these ex-white liberals is when they hear black people pointing out that we're doing the work. Whether it be changing society, improving society, or what have you, whenever black people stand up for ourselves and say, hey, we're the ones out here doing the actual work of driving the society forward, they hate that. They hate it because it makes them feel insecure. It reminds them that we built the country while Massa was lounging on a porch doing nothing. Drinking mint juleps on a summer day doesn't constitute work. From Wall Street to Pennsylvania Avenue, we built this country brick by brick. The great migrations from both Europe and Asia began in the late 19th century. And they all came here not because of what might be built or what potentially could be, but because of what had already been done. The groundwork had already been laid, the house already built, so all they had to do was just walk in and begin enjoying the fruits of black slave labor. But that's the truth. And the truth can't be spoken anymore. There are laws now to outlaw it. But as we understand it, the truth cannot just be the truth, it must also be told. White supremacists fear the truth. Merely telling people what Dr. King actually said was so frightening, so terrifying to these white supremacists who run this very website, they put an age restriction on it. Yeah, if you sit there and give Dr. King's most innocuous and truth be told, least offensive statement, oh, little black boys and black girls playing together, content of one's character, they're fine with that, because that doesn't require any change, doesn't prompt any change. But when you tell people the other 99.9% of Dr. King's statements, that all of a sudden, this is not something that people under the age of 18 should be hearing. Yeah, we don't want young people hearing this. We don't want them being exposed to this historical fact. It would ruin the narrative. And keep in mind, these are the same people who the right-wing nuts claim, oh, there's censorship on Google, there's censorship on YouTube. They don't want anything conservative. Give me a break. From Colin Flaherty to Ben Shapiro, YouTube has been a free fire zone for every anti-black racist out there. Anybody who wants to justify the murder of a black person or to claim that racism doesn't matter, it doesn't happen, and even if it does, it don't mean that much, YouTube not only welcomes such individuals, it tries to promote them and find ways to help these guys gain as large an audience as possible. But of course, that's white supremacy. It tries to take both sides of the conversation. Thank you very much, Neely Fuller. Now let's understand something. The white right and the white left are flip sides of the same coin, just like the Democrats and the Republicans. Republicans are the voice of established white power. They speak for the rank and file, the in crowd, if you will. They are the unabashed, vitriolic, and aggressive proponents of whatever is in the interest of entrenched white power. White supremacy needs to make sure its demands are spoken loudly and clearly, with no ambiguity. The Republican Party serves this purpose. The problem is the United States is not an ethnically homogeneous society. Now, the dominant society may be the ones with the most money and resources, but there are other people here, principally the 50-plus million ex-slaves who have been forcing this country to take the few modest steps towards civilization that it's pretended to take in the last 150 years. So how do you keep this large, vocal, and occasionally effective group who keeps threatening to change things in line? You create a social and political fiction. The fiction is that you're going to bring these ex-slaves into the system. They're going to be brought into the mainstream, or at least you tell them that they're going to be, and that they will be made full participants in the American experiment. But of course, there's a huge difference between participating in the American social order and being a beneficiary of it. We were participating in the American experiment when we were on the plantations. We built the country. We built its economic infrastructure, but we didn't get anything out of it. So it's not participation that we want, it's compensation. And that's been the demand for 150 years. To keep us in line requires controlled opposition, someone who claims to speak against the establishment, who claims to speak for us. This is where the Democrats come in, as well as these black misleaders, and of course you got the liberal allies. They don't actually oppose the Republicans, they just want you to think they do. Haven't you ever noticed how when Democrats claim to put forward some legislation, especially if it pertains to black people, all the Republicans vote against it as a bloc? But when Republicans put forward legislation, including legislation that harms black people, you have almost half or so of Democrats who vote for it. There's always a number of Democrats who break with it. They can't maintain any unity when it comes to black people. Heck, we can even go beyond that. When's the last time that you've seen the Democrats, all the Democrats, vote as a bloc against some proposed piece of Republican legislation? Democrats and Republicans both get most of their money from the same rich donors. That's the common denominator. Somebody seems to understand that both political parties are nothing more than puppets putting on political theater. But the show they've been putting on has not been a comedy at all. It's been a tragedy, with black people in this country being the victims of it. The United States has a sick obsession with controlling us, and if we refuse to be controlled, then we have to be destroyed. And a lot of the people who claim that they were standing with black people, like, say, Charlton Heston, oh, he marched with Dr. King, that is, until things started changing economically for black people, or at least he perceived that they had. That's what Dr. King talked about. Well, there were a lot of these so-called white liberals who had no problem with the idea of, let's not have Bull Connor turning fire hoses on them. We're being a little bit rough on them, but that was where their sympathies ended. And that's how you get a Charlton Heston who has no problem standing with black folks until the fire hoses get turned off and black folks say, great, now we're going to be dealing with fixing black housing, fixing black economic opportunities, and of course, black political representation. Real representation, not phony representation like Jim Clyburn and John Lewis. When that happened, all of a sudden, Charlton Heston's looking and going, I don't like this. And then that's how we get the asinine spectacle of some of these people who were never really in favor of racial justice in any shape, form, or fashion, suddenly deciding why I'm against everything left. Doesn't matter about economics, because, white supremacy is not based on whether or not you're a white right-winger or a white left-winger. That's not what determines what you get in the society. So it costs them nothing to claim, I'm not going to be concerned about whether or not there should be more of a left socialist bent to economic distribution or more of a right fascist bent to it. They understand that the split is going to be the same for them regardless. So that's the reason why they have no problem deciding to turn their guns on black people. Black people have been spending the last 50 plus years wondering why it is that the so-called allies never stand with black people for more than 5 seconds, just long enough for a photo op, and then they disappear. And tell us later on why I was standing with you people, just like Charlton Heston did, until he didn't. For 3 generations, black people have been chasing the mirage of allies and then wondering where these freaking allies are. They always seem to disappear and vanish. Yeah, they've known the scam. We haven't. That's the bad news. The good news is, if we fight, we win. I said it 15 years ago, and it's still true today. The only reason the whining and caterwauling from the usual suspects is a problem is because we haven't taken the time to aggregate enough power to make sure that it's not. Allies are no substitute for unity. We're not going to find some end run around doing the real work of making sure that black people put their heads, hearts, and minds together. This is why the absurd obsession with allies has always been a losing proposition. Dr. Clark said it best, we have no friends. But fortunately, we have something far better than friends. We've got family. And it's way past time we started leveraging that. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Harvey Wilmore, Chaz, Cordelia Dudas, Keitha Dixon, and Lo Have Mercy. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.